Hello everyone, this is Amir again, and in this video I'm going to try to share a little bit about Microsoft Access 2003. I already have a video on Office Access 2007-2010, and somebody mentioned, so I decided that I'll make some videos on that. So I'm hoping that in 3 to 4 videos I'm going to try to share all the important elements of Microsoft Access. Microsoft Access are what are known as database. Database are nothing but collection of records. That's what database are. And they allow you to collect information, and then they allow you to manipulate that information. Like once you have a database, you have thousands of records, you can search through it. It's called a query. You can create a form to enter the information in your database, and at the end you can create a report. So we're going to try to look at 4 elements of database: tables, queries, forms, and reports, and I'll talk about it as we go more and more into it. And if you think about it, we are surrounded by database. Every time you start collecting information, say you want to create a list of people's telephone numbers and email addresses, it's a database. You are collecting information. You have a column called first name, a column called last name, another column for telephone number, and then you start entering all the information in rows. So this is what Access allows you to do, and I'm hoping I'll give you enough information that if you ever had to take a test, you can pass it and have a decent understanding of it, that you can put it on your resume or your biodata, CV. That's what's called in some countries, that Microsoft Access. So this is the way Access starts out. Now you want to create a new file, so you can click on the white page button here, or you can even click on File, New. So either way, there or here, and you get this window on the side, on the right hand side, and we're going to go with the blank database. Depending on the configuration on your computer, you might even see an option where you may already see some already created database for different things that you can use. So we'll go with the blank database. Now Access is unique because it's going to make you save your file right away. So in this example, I'm going to try to create a contact list. So it's a database which will be accepting information about names and things like that. So I'm just going to call it contact list, and I'm going to click create. Okay, and you get this window here. Okay. And now if you look on the left hand side, we've got tables, queries, forms, and reports. So we're going to try to get to these 4 elements. So the most fundamental element in Access is a table. The table is where you decide what kind of an information do you want to create. So if you are trying to create a list of people's names and addresses, so we need to create a table with the headings like first name, last name. So all of that has to be done first before we can start entering the data. So in Access, there are 2 parts. One is where you actually enter the information, and then there is the design element of that, where you actually design each and every aspect of the table where you're going to enter. So this will become clear once we start using this. So in the table, there is an option where it says create table by using wizard. So if I wanted, I could double click on it. Now in the wizard, what it does is it gives me a lot of pre-created tables. So you see right now it's selected business, and there are some business tables like customer list, employees, and each and every table has a bunch of fields. You could accept all of them, or you could click on one of them and add one at a time by using this. And if you wanted, you could use this button to remove it. Okay. So, and you can also click on personal, and in the personal they have sample table for addresses, guest, household inventory. So these are all created. So I'll just go through this one process. So for example, addresses, there are all these different things. So if I want, I can click this. It adds all the fields to my table. and I could just click this to remove all. So I'll just pick a few. So I can pick address, first name, last name, address, city, state, province, postal code, country, email address, home phone. I'll take mobile phone, birth date, maybe notes, and also one for photograph. Okay, and you could always rename fields. So I can scroll up, I'll click here, and I'll click rename for the address ID, and I'll change it to, I'll call it contact ID, and I'll explain to you why that field is there. And I'll click next. Now this is the name of the table, so I'm going to call it contact list. That's the name of the table, because within an Access file you can have multiple tables. You can have one for contact list, another one for DVD list, another one for CD list, whatever you feel like. And on the bottom it's asking you a question called something to do with the primary key. Do you want the wizard to set the primary key? Now what is a primary key? Primary key is something that will recognize each and every record in a unique way. So say for example, my first record is John Doe, and I type his information. But then even my second name is John Doe because I happen to know two John Doe. Now because both the names are same, the computer will get confused. So the primary key comes into play. So the primary key could be, the simplest thing could be, I'm just going to put a numbering system 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's the numbering system. If you think about it, every time you go to a store, every store has a product ID for every product. In our personal life, we always, all of us have some way of uniquely recognizing ourselves. So if you start working in a company, the company will give you an employee ID. The employee ID is a primary key so that you get paid for the hours that you worked for. The same way in North America we have a social insurance number, or in the US it is social security number, which is a unique number. Driver's license number, it's the unique number that recognizes you. So that's what the meaning of primary key is. So it's asking me, do you want the Access to set it for you? I'll say yeah. It's going to set the first field, contact ID, as primary key. I'll click next. And it's asking me, do you want to enter your data directly? I'll say let's look at it. So I click it. So here I have my table, and this is where I start typing first name, last name, address, city. So all of that information I can start adding here. And the first field where it says contact ID, that is my primary key, and it is set for auto number, because as soon as I type here something, that auto number changes to 1. I hit the tab key to go to the next field, Doe, and then I can start writing the address. Okay. And if I go to the next field, that number automatically becomes 2 because it is set up like that. And I'm going to show you how you can make changes to those. So this is where I'm entering the information. But say for example, I want to make changes to this. So if you look in the left corner, under the File button, there is a button there. When I point to it, it says View. So if I click it, it changes the view to this view, which is known as the Design view. This is where I make changes to what my column headings will be. If I just come to the corner again, if I press this, I'm here. This is known as the Datasheet view. So if I click in the drop down button, you'll see Datasheet view and Design view. So it's like on, off, or front and back. When you are in the Design view, you are only designing the table. You're not entering your information. To enter your information, you have to flip it. This is where you enter your information. Okay, so whatever you wanted, you can start entering. So you can continue typing. Email address, blah, blah, blah. And you can keep hitting tab, 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 and it will keep going. Okay. Now this is good. We can create this very faster by using that wizard option. However, I wanted to show you the basic elements, so I'm going to try to create a table, another one, but in a little different way. So I'm just going to close this, and you see this is the contact list we just created. So if I double click on it, that list is still there. Earlier we had used this create table by using wizard. Now what I'm going to do is use this option, the first one, create table in design view, because this way I'll be able to tell you everything in more detail. So I'm going to double click on it. Now I'm back in the design view. This is the designing of the table, and what I want to do is I'm just going to minimize this. I want to bring up something. What I want to do is I want to create a list with all this information. So this will be like first name, last name, telephone number, and things like that. So I'm going to create an exact same list in Microsoft Access. The first field I want is contact ID. Now the contact ID is my primary key. Again, primary key is something that defines a record in a unique way. A primary key cannot be repeated. Okay. Now next to the field name, the first column is here called field name. That is the heading of the column. Next to it is a field called data type on the top. Now what is a data type? A data type defines what information can be entered when you are entering your data. So like when I started typing John, Doe, all of that is being decided by the elements what is chosen in data type. And there are a couple of different types of data type which I'm going to talk about, a few of them. The first one is called a text. A text data type means I can enter numbers and alphabets. So that's just the way they've decided it. Text means you can type words and numbers. So if my contact ID data type is text, then I can type something like S1 or I can type A100. If I only wanted to type a number, I can choose just the number option, and this will allow me to type 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you choose this option, it means you are responsible for typing a new unique number every time you write a new record. You cannot repeat the number. But if you wanted Access to do it for you, you just choose the option that says auto number. Auto number means automatically keep on typing 1, 2, 3 as I keep on creating new records, as you just saw earlier. Now this contact ID is also going to be my primary key, so I'm going to press this key here button here, and that key button is added. That's become primary key, and you see there's a key that is added at the end. Now I go to the next line, and this field is called first name. So this is when I start entering the data, I'm going to type the name when I start entering in the first name. Now what should be the data type be for first name? It will be text, because I need to type words, or someone's name was John the one, then I can even type that. Now before I go ahead, I'm going to hit the save button because we need to save this table design. So I click save. It's asking me a name. I'll just call this contact list 1 because I already have a table called contact list, so I cannot give it the same name. I click OK. Now just to show you what we just did, I'm going to flip by using this button to go to the data sheet view, and here it is. This is where I start typing, and I'm going to press this button to come to the design view so we can finish designing the whole thing. I'm going to type last name. Now if you see, I'm typing the words together. You can keep them separate, like if I wanted I could put last space name, but this is just like an old habit that the programmers have been using, so I've continued with that last name altogether, but I type capital N so it's easy to understand. Now last name, again, the data type is here is text because we're going to enter text. After this, I want to take people's telephone number. Now you would be thinking that for the telephone number, I want the data type to be number. However, if you choose this, you cannot put brackets. Like for example, I wanted to put my telephone number like this. With brackets and hyphen, because numbers will not allow you to type that. For that reason, what we do is we choose the data type to be text. And here I'm going to introduce a concept on the bottom that is known as input mask. So you see on the bottom there is field properties. There is this section here. It's called field properties. Now each and every line that we have, they all have their separate field properties. You see that? And for telephone number, I want to set a input mask. I want to set a input mask in such a way that when somebody types 416123456 it will automatically put things in a certain pattern. So let me show you what I mean. So when I click here in the input mask, I'm going to click on the dots at the end. It starts as asking me to save it. I say yes. And here's the wizard. And you see they have these different types of input masks. For in the US they have the zip code and there's a telephone number. So I want the input mask to be like this. You could go to the next button or just hit finish. And it puts something there. I'll explain to you a little bit later what that means. Just to show you the benefit of doing this, I'm going to hit the save button and come to the datasheet view. And I'm just going to start typing something. John Doe. Now here for the telephone, when I start typing, see what happens. It automatically put the brackets for me. I do not have to put it. It also put the dash after the 3. So this is the benefit of input mask. What does that mean? Wherever you have a pattern which will be repeated, you can set an input mask. I'll come back to design view. And after telephone number, I'll put date of birth, like birth date. Now what should be the data type be for date of birth? The data type can be date and time. Date and time are the data type because in this category I'm going to enter a date. So I can choose date and time. Now before I go ahead, on the bottom for the field properties, I'm going to set 2 things. One is the first line called format, and if you look in the right, it explains to you what this section means. Format means display layout for the field. So format means how do you want to see your date. So if I click here, it's giving me options to have a long date, medium date, short date. I prefer medium date, so it spells out my month. And I go to the next line. The next line is called input mask, and here's an explanation for it. A pattern for all the data to be entered. That is, how do you want to enter your data? So for this, I'm going to click on the wizard, say yes to saving, and I'll say, you know what, I want to enter as a short date. And you can choose to enter a medium date too, so if you wanted, you could choose that. That's okay too. So it depends on your preference. So I'll just choose medium date, and I can click finish. And if you can even try it here if you wanted to. So if I wanted to type 01 JAN 77, so you have to try it like that, or you can type it like that. So I'm gonna hit finish. So it adds something there, and I'll hit save just to show you. I'll come back to the design datasheet view, and I'll tab here and say I wanted to write February 15, 1978. So I'll just put 15 FEB 78, and that's it. So that's the benefit of having an input mask. Now if I come back to the design view and I click in the date of birth, you need to be careful that if you want to change the date of birth in the field properties, you click on it, because if you click on telephone number, you start changing the field properties, you'll be changing the telephone number. So be careful. So I can click on date of birth, and say for example I change my mind about the format. I can click here and I say, you know what, show it to me in long date. I'll hit save, come back to the data sheet view, and you see, I'm just going to extend this column. Now my date of birth is in a long date. It tells me the Wednesday was the day. So that's not bad. So if you want, you can keep it like that. So you can change things on the fly. Come back to design view. Now after date of birth, what do I want? I want address and then city. Okay. So I'm going to have a field called address. Now what is the data type for address? It will be again be text. I can hit tab, tab. Tab means keep coming down. City, tab, tab, tab. Province or state, whatever you use. Country. After country, what else do I have? Postal code and then notes website. Postal code. Now for the postal code for people in the US, you could just click in the input mask, start the wizard, and you can choose this zip code option. However, I'm in Canada, and in Canada we have a different format of a zip code. And in other countries there are different. So in like a few minutes I'll teach you how to fix that problem and create your own input mask. Okay. For now you can leave it text, because if you left it as text you could put things in any format. It won't stop you from doing stuff. After postal code, I want to get their, say, website, for example. Now for the website, I can use the data type hyperlink. Hyperlink means if you enter a website, people can click on the link and it will take them to the website. After website, I want a field called notes. Notes means I want to leave a bunch of notes there. But for this, I am going to use the data type memo. So now your question will be, why not text? So to answer that, text means there is a limitation to how much you can type. So if you look in the bottom in the field properties, there is a field size option. Right now it's set to 50. And if you look on the right hand side, it says the largest maximum is 255. That means if you choose a data type text, I can change that field size to 255, but that's the maximum. But if you wanted to write a whole bunch of stuff, then there's no point to using the text option. So for that purpose, for the data type here, I'll choose memo. Memo means you can type a whole bunch of stuff. I think the limit is like 64,000 characters or something like that. But now understand the notion of text. So say for example, I click on city. Now do I need a field size of 50 for a city? Like there's a good chance that the number of characters that you need to type for a city shouldn't exceed maybe 20 or 25. So just be on the safe side, I can type 25. Same thing with the province. I can reduce. So this will help to save space. Country. There's a good chance that there is no country having 20 characters in their name. Even postal codes, like I don't need 50. Even 10 should be good enough. So this way I'm saving space, because if you are working on a big database, you start collecting millions of records, all of this space will be wasted because Access will leave 50 character space empty, even though only 10 are being used. So that's the point of it. And also, while we're in the topic of field properties, when I click on country, if you want, you can leave a default value. So say for example, my default value, that means for all my records I want it to be Canada. I can type Canada there, or India, or any other country that you have, USA, Australia, New Zealand, or whatever country you want. Default value means if you look on the site, a value that is automatically entered. Okay, so it saves you time when you're typing. You only have to type when you need to change it. Okay. After notes, I want to add a picture. Now what should the data type be for that? The data type will be something called OLE object. So you'll get an option to add a picture in there. Okay. I think I got all the fields here. Oh, I need to add one more. And I'm going to add a field called sex, which is male female kind of thing. Data type will be text, and I don't need so many characters, male female. So I'll just put 10 just to be. So we have actually created all the fields of our table. Now I'll hit save. Even if you don't, it will make you save it. And then come to the datasheet view. And here you see my default Canada showed up, and you can change it. There is nobody stopping you from doing that. And I'll just start entering some more. So I'm just typing whatever. And again, I'm here for the date. Now sometimes you might get confused and you go, how should I enter my date? I'm not sure. So if you want to leave notes for somebody like that, you can come back to the design view. And for the date of birth, I'll click in that line. There is this third column here called description. This is where you can leave a description. I can say type the date like this, 14 FEB, and then the year in 2 digits. So I'm leaving a note for somebody that they should be typing things like that. And you can leave all kind of notes here. Hit save, come back, and let's see, when I click here, look on the bottom here, it says type the date. Left hand side on the bottom, type the date like this. So if I wanted, I could say 10 MAR 90. And then I can start filling up all this information, going tab, 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 tab. And I can start filling things up. Okay. Now for example, I'm typing here, say Toronto, and then the next line I'm typing Toronto again, and I'm going to be repeating some cities a lot. So I don't want to worry about repeating all of these things. So if there were like 4 or 5 cities, it would be nice if I can create like a drop down button where I can choose things from. So let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to hit save, come to the design view, and I'm going to go to the section for city. For city, I want to create a list which will be like a drop down list with couple of names of the cities that I'll be repeating. You can type a whole lot, but we'll just do a few. I click here, choose Lookup Wizard, and I'm going to say I will type the values I want. Click next, and here I'm going to write Toronto, come down. Don't change that, that stays 1 as fine. And say I want to write Calgary, Vancouver, Barrie. So whatever cities that come to your mind, or the ones that you are repeating, you just keep typing. Click next, and then hit finish. Okay. Now you don't see anything in the field properties, but if you wanted to see your list, you just click on the lookup section on the bottom, and there is your list. And you can click on this dots. You know what, don't do that, that will just confuse you. But I just want to show you how to edit it. So if you want, you can click here and just scroll all the way to the end. You can make corrections, spelling corrections here, and just click at the end and put a comma there, and then start typing a new name. So I'm just going to hit save, come back to the data sheet view, and let's see, when I click under city, there is my drop down list. So wherever you wanted, you could use it. If I wanted to do this for province or for country, I can do that. All I have to do, come back to the design view, click on the field for province, click in the data type, choose Lookup Wizard. I will type the values I want, click next, and then I can start typing, say, ON for Ontario, AB for Alberta, so Quebec. So I can keep on typing all the fields I want, next, and finish, and here is my list. And if I wanted to add more, I could just click at the end and then type BC for British Columbia, and so on and so forth. And I hit save, just it's always a good habit. Now when you go to another field, say I go to address, and I don't see the general section, so just make sure you click on general, so you will see this. So the lookup and the general, so just make sure you switch over. Come back to the datasheet view, and let's see, province. There is my drop down list. Okay. So this way you can create and save time, because you might have seen this every time you go on any website. They always have a drop down list, and this is what they are doing. This is, they have a form of a database sitting there.